everybody to the Madison Bus Rapid Transit spring update as we roll through project development as we get closer and closer to implementing Bus Rapid Transit. We'll have a few updates for you today as things have progressed. A few updates and then a few changes. But before I get into it, I'd like to introduce the Mayor Satya Rhodes Conway, if you'd like to start us off with a few words.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Welcome. Glad to see such robust interest in our Bus Rapid Transit project, and I'm happy you're all here to get some of these updates. As I hope you know, Bus Rapid Transit is an absolutely key project for the future of Madison's transportation system. And I'm very committed to making sure that it's implemented in the best possible way for our community. I'm really excited about the progress that we're making and the conversations that we're having. And this is a project that is going to require collaboration all across our community. And one piece that I've been pushing on from the beginning is to really make this a system that serves our region as much as possible. And we're obviously very constrained by the state in how much we can actually create a regional system, but I'm delighted by the conversations that we've been having, particularly with Prairie, but also with other partners in the region and in the private sector about how this system is going to be able to serve them and their needs. I'm also really excited by the response that we got to the station design competition. And I hope that you all have had a chance to check out those concepts that were posted on the Metro website. There's some really innovative and interesting and well-designed ideas that we received. And so more to come on that soon. But I think it really shows a great interest in the community. And I'm eager to see what we end up with and to see those stations start to appear in our community over the coming years. So thanks again for joining us tonight. Thanks for being interested in the Bus Rapid Transit project. And just ask for your continued input and support as we continue to move this project forward. And Mike, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so again, this is an update to Bus Rapid Transit. So I'm just going to go through our agenda quickly here. We have a couple major things to touch on. A quick project summary, and then some engineering updates as we progress on design. Some BRT route updates. We had a few loose ends to tie up with that. And then, as the mayor mentioned, the station design competition. And then we'll wrap up with some of the other transportation projects that the city is working on. And of course, take your questions and comments. So some introductions. You've already met the mayor. We have Tom Lynch, our Director of Transportation, is on the call. Justin Sturenberg, the Metro Transit General Manager. And then myself, Mike Czechvala, I'm a transportation planner in the city's transportation department. We also have some representation from our consultant team here. AECOM is the project lead. Strand is helping with engineering and other things. And then Urban Assets is helping us with community engagement. And so you'll hear from them soon. Okay, so project summary. This is a bit of review, but we'll go through it quickly. Bus Rapid Transit is different from normal bus service in that it has more direct routes with fewer stops. Frequent all-day service, so typically service every 15 minutes or better throughout the majority of the day. Bus-only lanes where we can make it happen. Branded stations and buses to give the system a more unified feel and easier to use for people who are looking to use the system without knowing all of the routes and schedules. Transit signal priority reduces the delay at traffic signals and then faster fare payment. Again, the whole goal is to make a system that's faster, easier to use, allows people to get across town faster so that they can access jobs and education and all of the things that people travel for. And I'm just assuming that you can see the PowerPoint that I'm sharing. So if you can't, please let me know. So the schedule, again, our goal is to implement by the end of 2024. We're now in what's called project development. That's the yellow box here. So this is where we basically develop the plans and get the project ready to go so that we can hire contractors and make the changes and buy the buses and install the stations. This map shows the basic BRT alignment. So the east-west bus rapid transit project that I'm talking about is essentially the blue line. It travels from the West Town area to the East Town area. So I'll start from the west. This is Mineral Point Road. It'll serve the West Transfer Point, or in some way serve connections to routes on the southwest side. It'll go up Whitney Way, Sheboygan Avenue, University Avenue, Campus Drive, through the UW on University and Johnson, State Street, Capitol Square, and then mostly straight out East Washington with a small deviation to serve Madison College, and then ending in the East Town area. We'll get into some of the updates and details here will be in the terminals on the far east and west ends. And then with this project, we'll also brand 2 additional bus rapid transit lines. The yellow line here, which will shore up some of the needed frequency in the central west, near west corridor between downtown and Sheboygan Avenue. And then some buses will continue on to Middleton. And then we will also implement the third BRT line will be this north-south green line that will be on Park Street and then go into North Madison. And so those other 2 routes will be implemented with BRT buses, but they will serve local stops until future BRT lines are implemented. This diagram shows the running way characteristics. So the green lines are mixed traffic, so there will be some parts of the system that are in mixed traffic. The red lines are side running bus lanes. Most of those lanes are in existence already. For example, the bus lane on University Avenue, well, I shouldn't say most of them, some of them are. State Street, Capitol Square, we'll be installing some new ones, for example, on Johnson Street downtown and by the mall. And then the blue is center running bus lanes. So bus lanes in the middle of the street with stations in the median that will be faster and more premium bus rapid transit look and feel and will work better. So this is all review. So now we're going to dive into some of the details, and we've drawn some renderings that we think will hopefully be of interest. Right now we're about 10% of the way through the design of the running way and stations. So we're just looking at a pretty schematic level of how the intersections will function and where the bus lanes will be and exactly how intersections are designed and things like that. So I'm just going to go through them. I have about 10 of these, and I'd like to just kind of touch on them briefly and describe what we're looking at. So this is an example intersection on Mineral Point Road. This is Mineral Point in Grand Canyon. So we have bus lanes in the middle of the street here. So this is center running bus lanes. The existing left lane is converted to bus only, and then the right lane, which today is buses and bikes only, will be converted over to general traffic. So essentially, we're just moving the bus lanes from the side to the center, and then putting in the station in the middle. Left turns at all the intersections will be maintained. So we have in this direction going to the left, I suppose. You have a left turn lane on the outside of the bus lane, so that would happen with a protected left turn only arrow. And on the other side, we have the bus lane or the left turn lane kind of in the middle. So cars and trucks would merge over the bus lane and then make their left turn normally. So the station would be on one side, serving one side of the intersection, serving buses going in both directions. So this is a signalized intersection. You would walk across half of the street in the crosswalk on the side, and then you'd just walk into the station, wait for your bus. You wouldn't wait too long, 15 minutes at the most of the time. And then the bus would come and the bus would go. So I was thinking about some of the other modes. So for cars and trucks, there's not too much different. You still have two general purpose travel lanes in both directions. Right turns will be made from the through lanes, which is pretty common. And then so for bikes, there are some significant changes for bikes. Today, the bikes would normally use the bus, bike, and right turn lanes, but those are being moved to the center, so that won't work. So we are proposing a two-way shared use path on the north side of Mineral Point Road, and I'm assuming you can see my cursor, but it's kind of on the top of this drawing in the black, kind of the black color there. So that accommodates bikes. That'll be the widening of the existing sidewalk and converting it to a path that'll accommodate both bikes and buses. So this is more of a ground level view. So this is what you would see as you're standing in the crosswalk, for example. There'd be a short ramp to the station, and then you'd have a shelter that kind of serves both sides. We don't know exactly that's what the buses will look like, but that bus looks pretty good. I don't know. Okay, so moving into the center of town, State Street. This is a slight change. So in the past, we've shown the station slightly east of here. We're investigating some slightly revised locations for the stations on State Street. So this is State Street, of course, is this direction going from bottom right to top left. And then Johnson Street is one way to the right, eastbound. And then this is Henry Street with the angled parking. So this is a triangle market you see here, and then State Street here. So in the past, we've shown the State Street station westbound on the other side of this intersection on the Noodles side. We're now investigating this location. We went out with a tape measure and took some photos and kind of. We think that this location will fit better. The sidewalk is a little bit wider with the trees in the intersections. We think this location will work a little bit better than near side, which is the other side. So this is kind of what this would look like from a bird's eye view. And then the eastbound station would be sort of kitty corner opposite of this station. So it'd be eastbound right after the buses turn from Johnson to State Street. And we're kind of looking at that block in a lot of detail to try to decide exactly what the best location is for that station. That block is a little more complicated. So that's why we're kind of showing this side of it. So, but anyway, the we're going to just kind of dig into the details about the dimensions here and how this would fit in, because we would like to make a BRT station and infrastructure that works well on State Street and works with the character of the street. Now, we don't know exactly what the shelters and all the infrastructure will look like. I'll talk about the station design competition shortly. But generally, the BRT infrastructure will fit in between the curb and the sidewalk here. So there's, I think, about 12 feet or so. So that's enough space for all the station infrastructure to fit here. The buses will drive up and down the street as they do today, and they'll stop in the travel lane as they do today. If we had a bus stop in this location, which we currently don't, we would really just replace the shelters that are there with the BRT infrastructure. So this yellow strip here, that's the platform edge that would be raised above the pavement height by about 14 inches, which is the level of the bus floor, so that you can walk directly from the bus to the platform and back. So that does present some complications. So we have to ramp up to it on both sides. So if you see this kind of gray area here, this is all sidewalk level, and then this gray area is kind of a ramp going up to that higher platform, 14 inches. The curbs today on State Street are 4 inches. Normal curbs are 6 inches. So you have a rise of roughly 10 inches. And then on this side, you also have that same ramp. So you can enter the station from either side, but there would be likely a curb or railing or something on the back here because there would be a drop off. The platform would be again about 10 inches or so above the sidewalk below it. Okay, and then this is probably a better picture to look at when I was describing that. But here again, you see kind of this ramp up. This height is 14 inches. This is where you wait for the bus. We have the real-time information signs, fare collection equipment, if depending on how we're doing that, which we don't really know yet. But again, we're trying to maintain access to the businesses behind, trying to maintain the basic function and look and feel of State Street as we replace our existing bus infrastructure with bus rapid transit infrastructure. This is University in Midvale. So I guess sorry for jumping around a little bit, but near West Side, University Avenue is going up and down. Midvale is to the right. So today there are three travel lanes in each direction. There will still generally be three travel lanes in each direction. So 3-lane approach here, and then so this right turn lane to Midvale will be buses will be allowed to use that. That'll become a bus and right turn lane that will allow the buses to skip the queues at Midvale. So we'll slide into this right turn lane, and then we'll be able to go straight forward and serve the stop. This will be a pull-out bus stop at the southeast corner of University and Midvale, and then we'll pull into traffic. So little things like that will help us get by the queues and not have to wait in traffic. Westbound is a little more complicated. We have 2 left turn lanes. As you approach, coming in the down direction on this drawing, but in the westbound direction, today there's 3 travel lanes. So the left-hand travel lane would become dedicated to turning left at Midvale. So that would be this lane must turn left or whatever. And then you'd have 2 travel lanes that continue through. And then the third travel lane that opens up would become a right-only plus buses. So that's another way that we can get buses to kind of skip the queues. We can do that at this intersection because of the very high volume of left turns at this intersection. A lot of University Avenue does have a lot of traffic, but a lot of it is turning left. So as you would go through the intersection in the westbound direction, you'd have 2 travel lanes going through the intersection, this short bus lane that allows us to skip the queues, and then after this westbound station at the far side of Midvale, this 3rd lane would again open up to general purpose traffic, which would more or less be dedicated to the exit towards Old Middleton Road. Going again to the ground level view. So this is an eastbound bus. It's come through the intersection. It's used the right turn lane to skip the queues. It'll serve the people at the station here, and then merge back into traffic. Normally, we don't like to have buses merging into traffic like that. It's a delay, and it's unpredictable delay waiting for that gap. But in this particular case, the skipping of the queues at the Midvale intersection is sort of worth it to us. So that's kind of a trade-off. We think that'll be better than the way it is today. So normally, we have a station here, and then we like to have a sidewalk that goes behind, and we'll direct the bikes to go behind the station platform and the shelter to maintain that pedestrian connectivity and accommodate the bikes without having the bikes in the bus lane with the conflict there and the merge. This is showing kind of the worst case scenario. This is a scenario where we have what's called a walk-through station, where the sidewalk essentially just goes right through the station platform area. That's kind of a worst case scenario. We haven't looked at detail enough at this location to know if we're going to need to do that. I think the standard would be to have the sidewalk in the back, but I think we're just showing this to kind of show that kind of worst case scenario. But again, normally we have the sidewalk that continues around the back of the shelter there. This is another picture of Mineral Point Road. So again, this is more highlighting the shared use path on the north side. So this replaces the sidewalk and accommodates bikes going in both directions. And then the bus lane is again on the left-hand side. Just another picture here. Basically the same thing. Okay, so moving on to the next agenda item, we have BRT route updates. Mostly this is talking about the terminals. The city has adopted what's called a locally preferred alternative, which more or less lays out the routes and stations and general infrastructure improvements. But we did leave a few loose ends because we didn't know exactly how we wanted to end the routes. And so we do have some updates on that. So I'll kind of start at the west end here. So this is Junction Road, Mineral Point Road, and we had two alternatives. One was turning around at Big Sky Drive and High Point, and then one was continuing out to Junction Road and doing this turnaround at Junction just south of Mineral Point. We are pursuing this option, the Junction Road terminal option, that'll push the service a little bit farther out to the west and gives us a lot that the city can control, where we'll have off-street charging for the buses, and we'll have a layover site that we can kind of control off-street. So the buses will come in here, and then there will be a station, and then they'll turn around, come back onto Junction Road, and then come straight north and make the right-hand turn. So that's kind of the direction there. This is a site view. So north is to the right. Try to keep it interesting. But buses come southbound on Junction Road, and this is very schematic. But they turn in here. There'd be space for two buses, one on each side of this platform. So we could have BRT on one side and local buses on the other. If we have local buses coming in to meet the BRT buses at this place, or we could have BRT on both sides. There's some options. The BRT buses will have doors on both sides. Local buses, of course, only have doors on the right-hand side. But anyway, they come in, they charge, they wait for time and lay over there for 10 minutes. And then they'd come out and make the northbound right and go north. So we probably would need to put a traffic signal in there. This is in between Watts and Mineral Point on Junction. So they'd come out, wait for the green light, turn around. Moving to the east terminal. So we had a couple alternatives over here. We kind of went back and forth. This is actually something new. It's similar to what we proposed before, but it's a little better. So we had looked at a couple of different terminal stations near the mall. So what we're proposing now is going all the way out to East Springs Drive, which is this last street. It's basically the last traffic signal on East Washington as you drive out towards the mall before you get to the freeway interchange. And so we would serve that East Springs station, and then the route would split, and some buses would continue out on Highway 151, turn left, and serve what's now Route 26, serving the American Center, UW Hospital, and then ending at a layover and charging facility here on Hanson Road, while other buses would turn right and go up High Crossing Boulevard and actually end at the Sun Prairie Park and Ride. This is a new park and ride that was built a couple of years ago. And the vision is that Sun Prairie may then be able to provide local service and connections to other modes from that park and ride on the southwest side of Sun Prairie. So we're pretty excited about this terminal. The advantages are it serves the entirety of East Washington Avenue out to the end of the urbanized end of the line, basically. So we get to serve to some degree, to one degree or another, the denser residential areas on the north side of East Washington, the businesses on the south side of East Washington. But then we also are able to bring in Sun Prairie, our partners, to the northeast into the system. So they will have, although they won't have the full BRT treatment with service every 15 minutes, because they'll get every other bus, they will get service that's every half hour or perhaps hourly on evenings and weekends that goes directly into the system. So they'll get on a bus at their park and ride and then go straight into the system, and have the connection to Easttown Mall, Madison College, downtown Madison, University of Wisconsin, and all the way out to the west side. And then the other thing is that Metro is moving forward in purchasing and moving into a new bus storage facility on Hanson Road, the former FedEx site, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And that's this red terminal here at the end of what's now Route 26. So that provides some efficiency for us in that we'll have an existing facility there with bathrooms, and we'll have charging at our own facility. So operationally, that's beneficial to us to have a terminal that we can really control and is connected to our operations. So here's just kind of an overview. I don't know if you're familiar with the Sun Prairie Park and Ride, because it is quite new and it's not even on this aerial satellite image yet. But here's Highway 151. Here's Reiner Road. So the buses will just get off the freeway and then go in and circle in. It's this dirt patch here, which obviously labeled Sun Prairie Park and Ride. So they have space for I don't know, 50 cars or so. It's just a guess. And there's a bus station here, a bus stop there. So we'll install charging and bathrooms for the operators, which we need because that will be the end of the line. That'll be their only place to use the bathroom, but it will not be a full BRT station because it won't have the full 15-minute service. But that'll be the kind of the core, the anchor for any kind of local Sun Prairie bus service if it were installed in the future to go into Sun Prairie. And then the other terminal is this Hanson Road site. So as I mentioned, the city has purchased this FedEx, former FedEx site on the south side of Hanson Road. And so that's exciting for us. We've been looking for more capacity for our bus storage and operations for quite some time. And this is something that kind of popped up, and the benefit is it's pretty much ready for us to move in and start doing bus operations there. So I'm not going to go into the details because we're talking about bus rapid transit today, but so that's popped up and that's come to fruition in the last year, within the last year. So we're excited to have that piece on the end of our BRT system as well. Okay, finally, this is the last major topic to talk about today, but it's also very exciting: station design competition. The city Metro Transit hosted a design competition to help us design the BRT stations. We wanted to get the input from the people who live in Madison and people who don't live in Madison, and have some interest in how the BRT station should look. There's a lot of skill and talent out there, and we wanted to take advantage of that. These two examples here are examples of BRT stations in other cities, Cleveland at the top and Richmond, Virginia at the bottom. So this design competition was open to the public. Anybody could participate. You had to draw and design some conceptual BRT stations. We are giving away a cash prize. And so we're working through those submissions. We received a total of 67 concepts, 67 submissions. 50 of them met our initial requirements and passed the initial screening. We then sent them to our design consultants at AECOM, who have architects and engineers on staff that reviewed them to see if they were sort of practical, buildable, and could be built with our available budget. And with that screening, we were fairly open to designs that could be adapted. We weren't too stringent on that, but the key for us was understanding how the basic structure fits together and what the basic materials are, and is it a design that we could realistically modify to and proceed with an actual design that could be built, installed, and maintained while still adhering to the basic intent of the original designer. So we had 23 submissions that met that level of screening, and so those are posted on our website now. And so the Urban Design Commission will determine the winner to that competition in late May, tentatively. That's when we have it scheduled. And I have a link, so it's at madisonbrt.com. Jesse, is there a way I can post a link in the chat or something, or is that not possible? I'm sorry, I don't know if I can do that or not.
No, there isn't a chat active for this, so it really can't be posted in. No
problem. Okay, so I was going to try to get you to the link where you could go right to them. But if you go to madisonbrt.com, you can go to the station design competition on the right, and you can see all 23 entries, and you can see the pictures, and there's some really good ones. So I encourage you to do that. So again, I'd just like to thank everybody who participated in that. We received over 60 submissions and thousands of comments. We had a survey going. I think that's closed now. But if you have any input on those, you can always, of course, email us and contact us. So again, thank you for everybody who participated in that. And so the last thing I'd like to do is quickly just scroll through them all. There's 23 of them. So I'm just going to give every one of them a second or two, and I think I think they're all very good, and I think it probably be one of the better minutes we've spent today. So I'm just going to be quiet, and I'm just going to scroll through them all real quickly. One thing I wanted to note too is that we keep track of them by the serial number that you'll see on the image. So if you do go to our website, you can reference that serial number. That's just a random number that we gave them so that we could treat them randomly and unanimously. Okay, so that's it. I'd just like to also go through some of the other transportation projects that the city is working on. There's a lot right now, and so we do recognize that it's hard for people to keep track of these things. So I just like to talk about these quickly. So Madison Metro Network Transit Network redesign. This is a project to completely do a comprehensive look at our route structure and redesign our routes and schedules. One of the impetuses of this project is the bus rapid transit project. So we know that we can't simply drop the BRT lines on top of the existing system and not have some duplication and misconnections. So we're looking at the system from scratch. And we'll try to design some totally new routes and schedules to be implemented in 2023 and 2024, or 2022 and 2023. I'm sorry. The website there is on the bottom right. We do have a survey out, but you should act fast because it closes on May 14th. The Vision Zero project is a data-driven strategy intended to eliminate traffic deaths and severe injuries on city streets by 2030. City of Madison Vision Zero initiative strives to improve safety for all travel modes throughout the city and improve the identified high injury intersections, all in an effort to prevent avoidable fatal crashes. Complete Green Streets project to develop complete Green Streets plan that helps policymakers assign priorities in the public right-of-way. The plan will consider network connectivity for different travel modes, parking, loading, and context of the street location and green infrastructure priority areas. So that'll wrap things up from my end. We'll take some questions, and at this point, I'll pass it to Melissa Huggins, who I'd like to introduce from Urban Assets, and she'll help us taking questions. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I know that I saw a few hands go up and come down, so please put them back up during, because we will get to them. Just a quick reminder to ask questions. Click on participants or on your, what's it called? I'm not even seeing, so maybe it's just participants to raise your hand. And if you're on the phone, you can do *9 to raise and lower your hand. And so I see lots of hands going up. So we will start at the top. Natasha, I will allow you to talk. Go ahead. Oops. Maybe Jesse already beat me to that. There we go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So in the first section, you went over some visuals of how the lanes will look with the proposed changes. Do you have anything like that for the east side? I'm thinking my neighborhood, particular First and East Wash. That's my first question. My second question is, I haven't been able to find on the website, and I've looked pretty extensively what the plan is for First and East Wash. I have concern about like losing parking, the rate of traffic potentially moving, closer to my front door. And so I'd kind of like those concerns addressed. And then, third, with the Vision Zero project, I've looked at how that's going to impact my neighborhood with the Continental crosswalks. And I'm not really confident that that's going to cut down the drag racing that impacts the community that lives along East Washington. And so, I still am advocating for more to be done there, frankly. And, if we're also considering green standards, if you ever come down to the Ave at like 9 o'clock on a Friday night, you will be shocked by the amount of air pollution from the burning rubber to the diesel. I think people would really be surprised by that. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, I apologize. We neglected to add. We do have some east side renderings, so I'm just brought them up here quickly. But this is East Washington and Patterson. I apologize for that. So this is a center running station on East Washington. The eastbound left turn lane would be removed at this intersection. And here's the BRT station in the middle. I think I have a bird's eye view of that too. So here's perhaps a better. And I apologize again, this was left off of the PowerPoint in error. So again, the westbound left turn remains, and you'd cross over the bus lane and make the left turn as normal. The eastbound left turn would be eliminated, and you would make a left turn at a different intersection and circle through to get where you need to go. So yeah, I apologize for that. And then we don't have renderings at First Street, but the basic plan would be to continue these bus lanes to First Street. The median would be so the station would be on the west side of the intersection of East Washington and First. and the basic intersection geography would not change, but the everything would be moved in the east direction. Everything would be moved over one lane. So the parking lane would the right hand lane would remain. And you'd have 2 travel lanes, 2 left turn lanes, and a bus lane. And during the peak periods, peak direction, the parking lane would become a travel lane, so that we have our three general purpose travel lanes. So one outcome of this is that we do have a capacity reduction for most of the day, from 3 lanes to 2. And we do hear your concern and we share it. We think that this will hopefully help to some degree with some of the speeding and drag racing.
Yeah,
go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, can I add to that? Yeah, as Mike said, this will have a capacity reduction on East Washington in the evenings and then also on the weekends. I don't live that close to East Washington, but I can hear them even on Thursday night. I also want to let you know that there is a city team that meets weekly. It includes traffic engineering and Madison Police Department, and they are looking at ways to address the drag racing that's occurring. It seems to have increased during this pandemic, and so they are doing some interventions. And I don't think we found a solution yet, but we hear the need and are trying to address it.
So next person up, I think, is Janice. You should be able to talk.
Now, am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Oh, thank you. I wanted to know if you have a seat at the table, how much you're involved in the big discussion about turning State Street into a pedestrian mall with no traffic.
Thank you. Yeah, so we are involved in that discussion. We have identified that State Street is part of the BRT alignment, and so we do need State Street to be open to buses, at least between Gorham Street and the square. So that's what we've identified, and that's what we're moving forward with.
Thank you.
I might add to that the State Street, there's a variety of different considerations that have to be included, which include the fire lane and ADA access. Oftentimes, State Street is compared with other pedestrian malls or transit malls, actually, that actually have more right of way, and so it's not an apples to apples comparison. That being said, our plan right now is to, depending on, I'm going to put the caveat, depending on the network study, probably buses on State Street are likely to be reduced about 50%, and the ones that are there are likely to be electric. So some of the concerns regarding the buses on State Street will be removed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next
Hi.
up, we have Dawn. There you go.
Hi, this is Dawn Saban. Actually, my husband Benjamin is here with me and he's going to speak for us.
I think Natasha asked some of the questions and they were addressed already that we had, but I was curious on the drag racing issue. I know we're not specifically talking about that. It has gotten to be a big problem. Maybe just a suggestion, there could be some sort of a task force or squad of multiple police vehicles that could really focus on traffic enforcement on the weekends. I think that would go a long way and the message would get out, and that would probably help to crack down on that. So if anything could be done there, that would be really appreciated. The other thing is, I guess, you said we're going to be losing our parking during peak hours out front. What then happens to the bike lane at that time? And I guess my concern is we have a little bit of green space between us and the raging traffic out front, and we really want to make sure that that's preserved as much as possible. So we don't want to concede any of our area in between the sidewalk and the street to a bike lane or whatever the plan may be. So if you could just address that.
Sure, yeah, thank you. So I heard two things. One was a thought and request for police enforcement of the speeding and drag racing on the weekends. And I'll take that as a suggestion and pass that along. And the other was a question that I can hopefully answer. So the parking eastbound would be restricted between, for example, 4 and 6 p.m. for the eastbound rush hour traffic to have the capacity to accommodate that. At other times of the day and on weekends, the parking would remain. So when the parking is restricted for those few hours of the day, the bike lane would also be removed. And so with this project, we're working on ways to ameliorate that loss of bikeability on East Washington by investing in the parallel bike corridors. So the main parallel corridors are Mifflin Street on the north side and the Capital City Path on the south side. And so we're looking at ways to strengthen those corridors and make better connections. And so we're working on that. We don't have something to display today, but we will at a future meeting. So the grassy part between the curb and the sidewalk, we like to call that the terrace. We are not impacting the terrace at East Washington First at all. So that'll be the same.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Peter. Should be able to unmute yourself. Great.
Yeah, my question is just one of the keys is ridership and accessibility, and what I'm asking could be very expensive, but I'm wondering if there's a way that it could be free for low-income people or very low cost to low-income people to ride on these buses.
Thanks. So the fares, we do have a fare study, and fares are a little bit complicated. I see Justin has his hand raised, and he probably knows more about that than I do.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. I just wanted to address that the conversation about fares system-wide is going on separately from this. Our goal is that whatever the fares are on the entire system will be the same on BRT. There won't be any sort of premium on BRT, but that there's no necessarily discount on BRT that doesn't exist elsewhere. So that is a separate conversation that's going on in parallel, and we do expect to have a public meeting on that, most likely in June, but we'll be reaching out to set that up so you all have a chance to participate in that conversation.
Thank you both.
Next up, we have Bob.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I have a number of things here. I guess one of my first questions are, what data are you using to support investing in the BRT? And concerning ridership, 2019 Metro ridership was the second lowest of the past 10 years, while the population increased by 26,000. Bringing into consideration also electric bikes and scooters, how that'll affect the ridership, especially around campus. What are the effects of removing local buses from East Washington will have on ridership? And local buses stop approximately every 2 to 3 blocks. the distance between the stops was increased for BRT buses to decrease travel time. Does this mean riders will need to walk farther to board the buses? And will the buses have to comply also with the new speed limits on there, which will also slow the buses down? And many months ago, I proposed using some current buses to simulate BRT service and get an idea about the BRT service appeal. State Street raised platforms along the sidewalk could result in people accidentally stepping off the raised platforms, especially if they've been drinking. And where left turn lanes cross the bus lanes, what happens if more left turns are in the queue and block the bus lane? And I also seem to recall that the East Washington reconstruction project several years ago installed some of the city services in the median to prevent digging up the street. If so, what happens to the platforms if that should occur?
Thank you, Bob. That's quite a list. Mike?
Okay, I'm going to try to go through what I can. So we have not identified any physical barriers to constructing median stations in the medians. There's some irrigation on East Washington, but that can all be moved and redone. Oh boy, let's see. So there's a question about connections between local buses and BRT, and so I think that will be identified with the transit network redesign. The basic goal is to provide connections that are workable and doable and comfortable for people where the local buses cross. And so we're working through that planning process. And so, Bob, we will have some more information on that. I think we have public information meetings in the July timeframe. Melissa's not.
Yeah.
She would know. So yeah, but generally speaking, it's possible some people may have to transfer more. It's also possible that some people who don't who transfer today will not have to transfer. One of the main advantages of the BRT system, the way we're doing it, is providing solid one-seat ride service out to the far west side, up to the north side, and down to the south side. So it's a complicated question, and we hope you'll stay in tune with the transit network redesign. As far as data and ridership goes, yeah, our ridership was heavily depressed with the COVID-19 pandemic. It has gone up and down a little bit. We would like to see it go up. We have a lot of data that we have, ridership data going back essentially 50 years since when Metro took over the Madison bus company, and lots of other data. We're a very data-driven organization. And then I thought there was one other thing. I'm sorry, it's not coming to mind. So if we could move on, and Bob, we have our email listed on the next slide. So if you have anything more that we didn't, I'd be happy to take it offline. I do see that we have a handful of hands raised. I think in is it in the panelist section? I just want to make sure those people don't get.
No, I'm not checking on those guys. Thank you. Michael Haas.
Thanks. Sorry if I missed this, but can you give us an idea of what the travel time would be from the east to the west side, and maybe from one end to downtown compared to what it is now?
Sure. So I don't have anything at the tips of my finger, but it's basically an hour trip from the west terminal to the East Springs terminal on the east side. So from Junction Road to East Town Mall is essentially an hour. So if you were to take the bus from West Town to East Town today, it would be 15 minutes from the west town stop to the west transfer point, and then Route 6 would be about an hour, 10 minutes. So if you had all that up, it'd be close to an hour and a half. So we're cutting off about 20 minutes off your trip, which really isn't that bad if you think about it. Hope that helps.
Thanks.
Alder McKinney, have you had your hand up?
Thank you. I didn't realize I still had my hand up. It's a appreciation more than a question. I was very happy that that West Town, that West End BRT terminal was added because it does bring some kind of life and connectivity to the far west side. And so my original question was, when was that going to happen? But it seems that it's already in the early design stage, and it will be in this first leg. So I'm very, very pleased to see that. And so thank you. And then also to see your movement in terms of looking at density for the north side. And so it just shows that you're really looking at, and I hope I'm reading this right, is that where density is and where populations are. And so that, and even though you're not going to be able to capture every node, you are really looking at how we can encompass some of those high density areas. And so I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. And yeah, you're correct. So the West Terminal on Junction Road would be built and opened with the BRT project in 2024.
Mary Beth, you are next.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the presentation. One question and one comment. So my hope is that BRT shifts away from single occupancy vehicle travel. But I'm not seeing a lot of like change in travel lanes or eases of SOV travel. So my question is there specific goals for modal shifts related to the BRT project? So how are we actually defining getting people out of their cars and using BRT? I don't own a car. I used to have sold it since. I depend on the busing, walking, and biking, so I'm excited about this. I also live in Gorham, which has a really bad speeding problem too. Want to state my preference for fixing that with roadway changes and not cops. I'm also a little frustrated by the removal of the bike lane from East Wash during rush hours because that's when people commute also on bikes. I think Mifflin's a reasonable suggestion. I ride on Mifflin every day though, and I've had cars stop and threaten to kill me while I've been on my bike. So I'm really excited by the possibility of Mifflin having real physical permanent barriers to be an actual bike boulevard because it's I would not recommend it right now. It's actually not low stress for me. And also wayfinding signs would be really helpful, I think, if we do have people using more of this connectivity. So to know to go on Mifflin and to know that there's also BRT on East Wash would be helpful. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, to answer the question, I mean, ridership is really the way that we can measure success here. And so that's the metric that we'll use. So yeah, we also would like to see a modal shift onto the bus in general and BRT. Okay, so serves some interest from some others over here. So Tom, Justin, what do you have to say?
Yeah, why don't I go ahead? As far as reducing automobile traffic, it's really an all hands on deck effort in that
you are breaking up a little bit, Tom. Maybe if you turn your video off.
Multiple city initiatives are working towards that. In fact, this Thursday we'll be commissioned to try and reduce single occupancy vehicle. And we've also asked for the MPO to develop a metric measuring system so that we can determine the vehicle miles traveled within Dane County so that we can gauge our process.
The only other thing I would add is that unfortunately East Wash is a U.S. highway that's controlled by the state DOT. So we don't have infinite authority to reduce lanes there as well. So that's the other consideration.
Thanks. Yeah, those are both good points.
Andrew, you are up next.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. I'm really excited about this project. I think it looks great. I'm really excited for Madison having this in its future. I currently live in Chicago, but I grew up in Madison and I go back a lot. I have lived car free most of my life, so I'm really excited about it. Just to go off of what Mary Beth was saying about modal shifting, I'm wondering, and you guys might not be the right people to answer this, but I'm wondering if Madison is changing any of their zoning around the transportation corridor to upzone to allow for more residents to live close to the transit corridor that will be created by the BRT. So I'm just wondering if Madison is looking at any things to address the missing middle in our housing market, anything similar to reducing parking minimums or getting rid of parking minimums that might get people to live more car-free lives. Thank you.
Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, we're looking at implementing a transit overlay district zoning ordinance. In fact, we were just awarded a grant from the US DOT to explore and implement it. And so probably our initial phase staging will be around the BRT corridors. So yes, we're very much interested in that. I would expect something, a transit-oriented development, overlay, zoning to go through our committees and commissions within 2 years.
All right, next, Debbie, you are next. You should be able to unmute yourself. Let me know if you can. There you go.
Debbie, are you there?
Yeah, she's now. Now you are unmuted, Debbie. You go ahead and talk. We should be able to hear you. We're having some technical difficulties. Gary Peterson, I'm going to go on to you, and then hopefully we can sort things out with Debbie.
I should be unmuted.
You are. Yes.
Okay, I have 3 points I want to make. One is that I know that there's a segment of this BRT route that was determined by emotion. It was stated at a public meeting that there was emotion in determining where to do a routing. And that's not the way to plan a transportation system. And it feeds into my second point is that public spaces. You know, at one time I drove my car up and down State Street. I parked on State Street. State Street evolved. It's changed. It's now a public space. It's not a highway corridor. We need to get buses and BRTs off of State Street. It's going to become more and more of a human people place. And Madison needs it. I've been to many of the major capitals in Europe, and they all have major public spaces right downtown. And for some reason, we want to give transportation a priority over people. On Gorham Street, transportation gets priority. On Johnson Street, transportation gets priority. Not on the square and not on State Street. The other thing is that, as I understand it, we're going to build bus stations on the square and out in the outer ring. We supposedly have trouble with budgets, but when it comes to this, we're duplicating stations. So at any one time, 50% of the stations are not going to be used. And the BRT really needs to go on the outer ring. First of all, it's an economic development tool. It's just not a transportation system. We don't need the BRT on the square. The few places we have left to redevelop are going to get done on their own, whereas there are many opportunities on the outer ring, and that's where we should really be doing it. And then I must say, I gotta say at the end, yeah, we got a transportation director that says East Washington Avenue is a U.S. highway. It is not. It's a highway. It's a state highway with a U.S. number. The interstate is a state highway. The only federal highways we have in the state of Wisconsin are in the national forests. A U.S. highway in the state planning gets no more priority than on the other state highway. So thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
So we're going to go on to Kathleen, but in the meanwhile, Debbie, I just wanted to have you check your microphone because no sound is coming through. I just wonder if it's on your end.
Yeah, I would say, Debbie, it is showing that you are unmuted. So if you have a mute button on your microphone or headset, check to make sure that that is not on mute.
Thank you, Jesse.
Otherwise, Debbie, if you have a question, if you can email it to brt@cityofmadison.com, that basically just comes directly to the handful of us here. Oh, sorry, I leave that up. We can read it and answer it if that's an option.
Hi, this is Kathleen. I appreciated the emphasis on the Midvale University Avenue left turn lanes when you're heading west going south onto Midvale, but I did not understand whether there's going to continue to be 2 left turn lanes. I just didn't understand the explanation. Thank you.
It was my fault, I'm sure. I apologize for that. Let me go back to it. Again, Debbie, if Debbie's listening, brt@cityofmadison.com, if that helps. Let's see. Okay, so yes, there will still be 2 westbound left turn lanes. So that's not changed at all. I'm sorry, what's the other question? Is there another question?
No, I didn't have any other question. Thank you.
Oh, okay, yeah, no. So it's just the left turn, the left-hand lane as you're approaching Midvale. It would be that it'd be what we call a lane drop. So it'd say that this lane is left turn only onto Midvale, and that lane would be directed toward the 2 left turn bays, and then the other 2 lanes would shift over, which allows for this 3rd lane here.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Bastian, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Awesome. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So I actually do live on State Street currently on the 400 block. I love the buses. I'm actually looking out at a bus station at my window right now. You might hear one passing actually. But the question I had was just with those State Street stations you were showing us. Throughout the past year, we've seen a lot of the expansion of the streetery program here downtown. And I was just wondering, how is this going to kind of impact local businesses? And the idea being they can't quite as expand outward as someone across the street could. I just was wondering how that came into considerations for this.
Yeah, it is. And so we'd like to have these be accommodate the businesses as much as possible. And that's one reason for the shift to the west side of this intersection. Not that I know all that much about the Triangle Market, but I do know that they don't normally do outdoor dining. And so we looked at this general block, and we thought that the impact would be lower there. We'd also like to make sure we're maintaining the sidewalk width and visibility to the businesses on the other side of the station, and make sure that we can accommodate outdoor dining as much as possible. Keep in mind there are only 2 station locations on State Street, so the other one is eastbound on the block between Johnson and Fairchild, or between Johnson and Dayton, or between Johnson and the outer loop. And so that station would be near help me out. Overture Center. Yes, thank you. Blank out there. So yeah, so it'd be near the Overture Center, which and so our hope is that station would not impact the businesses over there. But yeah, again, we'd like to design the station in a way to work with the businesses and again keep those sight lines and accessibility open.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you all again for your time. This has been an awesome presentation to watch.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming.
Nicholas, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, I should be on mute. I wanted to follow up on something earlier regarding kind of the administrative or jurisdictional barriers to reallocating traffic lanes on East Wash and kind of get more detail there. I mean, people on this call tonight are probably Madison residents, but we're all Wisconsinites as well. And, state government is our government in that regard as well. And so if state government is kind of standing in the way of what we need to do there, I was wondering, is there anything that people on the call or people who couldn't make the call tonight can do to help clear the way for those changes if those are important to the BRT project?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So the basic answer is that the Wisconsin Department of Transportation and the city have some shared jurisdiction over the roads. We both have responsibilities, and changes are made cooperatively. They did express an interest in maintaining either the 3 lanes of traffic or a traffic analysis showing that the 3 lanes of traffic would be necessary, which we know that they would be to accommodate the traffic volumes that are there. The other part of this is we don't want the traffic to spill out onto the other local streets, namely Willie Street and Johnson Gorham. For a while, the city's strategy has been to concentrate traffic to some degree onto East Washington to keep it there where it arguably belongs. But the point you make is good, and we are interested in growing the transit ridership and shifting travel to the bus system, and also managing speeds on East Wash. We felt that reducing the capacity for 22 hours a day or average 23 hours a day or whatever was a compromise that seemed to work to get our project completed. The other thing to keep in mind is that we could be able to adjust those times and perhaps even eliminate them if that could work in the future. So swapping out signs isn't that hard. So for example, if it seems immediately that we need to have a 3-hour restriction, but then we realize the first hour isn't necessary, we can change it to a 2-hour restriction. Again, none of us really know the future with the COVID pandemic and traffic volumes and these things and future policy. So it would be possible to eliminate them in the future if it became feasible. Do we have anything else to add from our side on that? I don't think so.
No, you actually answered it very well, Mike.
Okay.
Kenton Peters, you're up next.
Okay. Yes, this is Kenton speaking. I have several concerns. First of all, were your routes selected based upon an origin destination study?
So I'll address that. So we had a process that's been basically going on for the last 10 years to select these BRT routes. We had a study led by the Madison area NPO about 10 years ago that identified essentially the east-west route, which is blue, and the north-south route, which is green, as the first stages of BRT implementation. And we had some more complicated goals and strategies to try to identify those routes. But in my mind, there's kind of three things. One is the existing transit ridership today. So we have a lot of good data on where people ride the bus and when and what routes they use and things like that. So that's some pretty solid data that we used. But it is limited to the bus service that's there today. So the second thing that we use to identify these routes is where people could be riding tomorrow. And so that's an analysis of land use plans, land uses that exist or are developing, and to some degree, origin destination. Although it's a little hard because origin destination is largely modal dependent. So, for instance, there are origins and destinations in rural areas and suburban areas that people drive to, and it's not convenient for us to provide attractive bus service to some of those locations. So we're really, to some degree, relying on the transit ridership data to identify those travel patterns. And the third thing that we use to identify these routes are the transportation infrastructure that exists. So, for example, we're not building new roads. We're not turning local streets into arterials. We're for the most part living with the arterial street network that we have that can accommodate buses and that can potentially accommodate new bus lanes, as well as we did look at some things like railroad corridors and other places where we could perhaps create some new right of way. But for the most part, as you can see, these lines follow the street network. So those are kind of the three major things we use to identify these routes. And so then I think around 2017, 2018 or so, the city passed a resolution to authorize us to move forward with the east-west line as phase one. Did you have, I don't know if you had other questions or if there was
I have two others.
Okay, go ahead.
Is the route, two questions. I'll take the first. Is there any connection with the intercity buses? Is there a transportation center somewhere? Because if one is riding buses to Minneapolis, Chicago, or Milwaukee, there are hundreds of people that ride those buses. But at the current time, the only pickup place seems to be on Langdon Street in front of the Student Union. Is there any plan to have a transportation center?
Yeah, so good question. There is. Right now, buses are stopping on Lake Street, I believe. That's the latest I knew, which is within a block or two of the East Campus station shown on this map. We are investigating using the parking ramp on Lake Street just south of State Street. So it would also be a relatively convenient 1 or 2 block walk to the East Campus station. It would be ideal to have them a little bit closer, but downtown and the UW campus is a hard place to find places for these things, and so that was what we came up with, and I think that's probably as good as we're going to be able to do. For example, in Chicago, Union Station is close to the L line, the loop, but it is a block or two.
It's a long way from Michigan Avenue. But anyway, the next question is, I'll back up a little bit and say, but there are 44,000 students and a number of them live right in the downtown area, and say 15,000 faculty and staff, a number of them live in that same area. It seems to me that that would be something that should be looked at, is to have a specific transportation center, perhaps in that development that is planned to be along from State Street to University Avenue along Lake Street. But the next question I have is do you plan to run a bus to the airport?
So we're looking at that with the other project I mentioned, the transit network redesign. We do currently have bus service to the airport. It goes through the North transfer point, so it requires a transfer. If you can see the green line on this map, that's the BRT line heading to the north. We have not yet determined how that line terminates. So it's possible that could provide direct service to the airport. It is possible that we could improve transit service to the airport in other ways. So we have the request for direct service to the airport that people don't want to transfer, and I understand that. It's important to understand that airports do provide connectivity with planes, obviously, but transit ridership at mid-sized and smaller cities for airports usually does not produce as much ridership as you'd think. So I just want to throw that out, but we do hear the request often for better service to the airport, and we'll try to accommodate that in one way or another with either the north-south BRT line or some other way with the transit network redesign.
What would those other ways be?
With local bus service.
Well, I don't think it makes a difference which kind of bus you're on, but
right.
I would recommend, there are several 100,000 people fly out of that airport every year. And, and currently you typically can't get a bus to the airport, even though there's one that goes to Madison University. So that's something I would suggest that you take a hard look at. Thank you.
Yeah, what we really like to do is reduce travel times and improve access to more people within a certain number of minutes. For example, if people are willing to take the bus for half an hour or 45 minutes, they find that a reasonable travel time. Bringing more people into that area where they can get. And so we're not really as concerned with the color or type of the bus that takes you to the airport, or whether it's electric or not. I mean, we are trying to electrify the fleet, but if we can reduce the travel times better and accomplish more with local bus service to the airport, then that's the way we'll do it. Yeah, our main goal is travel times and access. Thank you. So move on to the next one.
We have 2 more questions. Brian, you should be able to speak, and then Deborah.
Thanks for taking my question. I apologize if this information is already out there, but how many of articulated buses or how many BRT buses are actually required to be operational or to have for every 15-minute service, or for the every 15-minute service that you're talking about? And then, are they definitely going to be at electric? Because at the endpoints, you mentioned having charging capabilities. So are they definitely going to be electric? And is there already a vendor for the buses, for the electric or for the BRT buses? And then also, what happened to the regular electric local buses that we supposedly acquired, and are they still on track to be in service in the summer of 21, like it says on the website somewhere? Thank you.
Justin, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess the first question around the bus fleet for the BRT. So the map that's shown here, the intent is for the blue line and the green line to be using fully electric buses. Whereas the plan for the kind of yellowish line, in those cases would be using diesel buses ostensibly, but we're also looking into the option to use biodiesel for that. The reason for that is that we don't have a good charging location in Middleton, but also that electric bus technology is relatively young, and there still are bumps in the road to work out. And so having somewhat of a mixed fleet gives us an opportunity to mitigate some of that risk, to ensure that if there is some sort of outage, we still have some fleet to operate some service. But the goal is to try to get us to a net zero emission overall through the use of either electric or biodiesel. But again, the blue and the green lines here would be fully electric, whereas the yellow line would be diesel and or biodiesel. The second question around the electric buses that are on order now, we have received those. There are 3 buses from Prairie, who's the manufacturer. There were some delays on the manufacturing side, some back and forth we had with them on some of the quality issues on the buses, but we have that worked out now. And we do have those in our garage. We're going through our final testing now. We'll go through driver training next. There are some eccentricities around how we drive electric buses to try to maximize the battery range. We need to be careful on the brakes to maximize regenerative braking, things like that. And so we'll be going through the training process for that. But we do hope to have those in service this summer.
Thank you.
Great, Deborah, you should be able to speak. And then I think the last question will be Carol, because we are up against the 7:30 time. And I want to be respectful of people's time.
Sure. I just have 2 quick questions. Will there be any kind of pilot program to help, add to the data and determining whether or not this is really a BRT, if it's really a necessary system to add in Madison? And then I just wondered, when will you hold a meeting that breaks down the cost? Because as I understand, the City of Madison is struggling financially right now. So I'm just concerned. I heard that it could be anywhere between $80 and $120 million. So I just wondered, will you post this on a website when people can tune in to find out exactly how we're going to pay for this?
Okay, thank you. I can go through it. Justin, you go ahead.
Sure. So I guess on the question of cost, the project itself will be $160 million. But what I want to emphasize here is that we're also, this project is buying 43 60-foot articulated buses as part of it. So the project is accomplishing several years of bus replacement for us as Metro, all in one swoop. And so while that may seem like a big price tag, it's also kind of displacing a lot of other costs that we would have otherwise expended. And so that's one big piece. We do expect a big portion of it, approximately 71%, to be covered by federal grants. And a portion has also been spent or has already been appropriated for design fees. So we're going through our 2022 budgeting process right now. In the previous capital improvement plan, we expected to spend about $25 million in local money on this project, or appropriate about $25 million in 2022. We're hopeful that we can actually get that down closer to 15 in the actual budget request for 2022. So again, I'd emphasize we'll be asking for around $15 million in local money to execute a $160 million project that will also accommodate or include our bus replacement needs for approximately 3 or 4 years. And so, overall, that's less than we would have spent just on bus replacement and local dollars alone.
I want to jump in too. So I did get an email from Debbie, who I think had technical problems. Just want to paraphrase her question. She had a question about the location of the Grand Canyon Station, which is here on Mineral Point at Canyon. I can't remember if it's on the east side or the west side, but I believe so. So this here is shown on the east side. I think that's correct. She said we had it at the wrong intersection. I'm not going to go through all these, but it is here at the Grand Canyon intersection. And I think we did have a drawing that showed the path that wasn't at a station location. So maybe that's some confusion. or maybe we have one of these labeled wrong. If we do, I apologize. But I'm just going to show the station locations again. So Mineral Point Road at Grand Canyon. This main north-south street here is Gammon. Westtown Mall is basically right below Westfield. We have High Point, Westfield, Grand Canyon, Island, Rose, and then Whitney and Mineral Point. So, and then the other question was crossing the street to access the station. So these are all at signalized intersections. So you press the button, you walk signal, and you cross half the street with the walk signal, and then you go to the station. So whichever direction you're coming from, it'll be essentially like crossing the street in any other way. One thing to keep in mind, I like to always point this out, is that you always have to cross the street to access a bus stop. So right now we have bus stops, I think at the far sides in both directions. So here's our bus stop here. So like if you lived on the north side of Mineral Point and you wanted to go into town, you'd have to cross the street to get to the bus stop. And then on the way back, you'd get off here, and then you wouldn't have to cross the street on the way back. If you lived on the south side of the street, it'd be the opposite. You wouldn't have to cross the street on your way in, but then when you got home westbound, you stop here, and then you'd have to cross the full intersection. So you're either crossing the full intersection once, or with the median stations, you're crossing half the intersection twice. So it's the same total number of crossings. So just trying to add some clarity there. Hopefully that helps.
Okay. So Carol, you should be able to ask your question. And Kathy, I saw you put your hand up. If you have a quick question, maybe we can squeeze you up, but we are blowing past the 7:30 time.
Okay, this is Carol. I have a couple questions. In places, if a regular bus, a non-BRT bus, is going along the road, would they be sharing a bus station with the BRT if there's an overlap?
For the most part, no. The BRT service will generally replace local service. So this will be the bus service on these corridors. It does get a little complicated downtown, where we have no real options other than to have them share. And we'll look at that in a little more detail. The options are basically either have the local buses serve the BRT stations, or more likely, and what works better, is to have the local buses stop on one side or the other. So the local buses stop next to the BRT station, but they're generally together. But overall, for most of the corridor, there will be no local bus service underneath.
Okay, and then I was curious to know why the buses are not doing a center lane location along University Avenue, where that seems to be a significantly long distance, that being able to have the buses move more quickly could have quite an advantage.
Yeah, good question. So we are in mixed traffic on University Avenue here between and University Bay. The basic reason is that we need the 3 lanes of capacity for travel on University Avenue. That street does about 50,000 cars a day. We know that things are changing with COVID-19, but it's really a capacity issue. On East Washington, we were able to come up with some creative solutions by utilizing the parking lane. But for University Avenue, again, and also because it's relatively short, the best option that we came up with was to just be in mixed traffic. But it's really a little more complicated than that, because although University Avenue is congested, we have 2 major signals. One is at Midvale and one is at University Bay. And so the congestion really is driven by those two intersections. And so that is why we decided to try to put some effort into those 2 intersections. I talked about the Midvale intersection earlier today at the beginning of the presentation, to talk about ways that we could skip the queues and get through that intersection without getting bogged down in traffic. We're doing some similar strategies at University Bay. I didn't go into that, it's too late to get into it now, but we're doing some similar strategies, if you can see this small red line there, that's a similar way for us to bypass queues and squeeze through that intersection faster than we do today. So hopefully that helps.
And on that picture that you were showing of that intersection at Midvale and University, where the U.S. Bank is, and that you said possibly the bikes would maybe be going behind the station. Mm-hmm. Is that correct? Or are they going to continue? Like right now, don't the bikes share the bus lane?
Yeah, right now there are bike lanes on University Avenue. And so this picture here is not completely 100% accurate. What we don't like is this conflict point where the bus is stopped and the bikes have to try to kind of meander, merge around the bus. So what happens is the bus is stopped and the bike is coming along, and then the bike can't proceed because the bus is there. So the bike either gets delayed or has to merge into traffic. And then later on, the bike is moving, but the bus wants to go faster. And so then the bus has to cross over the bike because it's kind of like a leapfrog action. Not a good situation. The way we can get around it is by routing the bikes up, around, back, behind the station. And so that way the two paths never cross each other, the bus and the bike. And so that's what we'd like to try to do at these stations. In the westbound station here, they're showing the bike lane just kind of next to the bus lane. And again, you can see what's happening is the bus is merging into the bike lane. The bus is merging into the bike lane, and then the bike has to go around the bus. And so you're doing that crossover pattern. And so this is a perfectly legitimate way to do it, but it's not the best way to do it. The best way is to have the bikes go back around behind the back of the station to eliminate that conflict.
Okay, Kathy, very last question then here.
Okay, I'll try to make it really quick. Do you have a slide that represents the intersection of Mineral Point Road and Westfield and Mineral Point Road and Randolph? And then also, I think someone had addressed the question of the potential pilot program, and it was never answered.
Oh, thanks. So this is Mineral Point and Grand Canyon, I believe, unless we got this wrong. We do not have one at Randolph and Westfield. Westfield is essentially identical to this for the most part. It's for all intents and purposes, the layout would be identical. Randolph, there wouldn't be a station there, so this would be essentially just both sides of the intersection would look like the top left intersection here. This is the way that would look. I'm not totally familiar with that but I'm pretty sure. I don't think there's anything strange going on at Randolph, so it would look like this. The question about putting this in place before we purchase the buses and build the stations and everything is actually something we're planning on doing. So we implement BRT in 2024. So hopefully by the end of 2024, we'll have all the buses, the stations will be done. All the signing and marking changes on the streets will be completed. The transit network redesign is shaking up the bus routes, which will be implemented in 2022 and possibly in 2023. And the goal with that project is actually to put the BRT routes in place with the buses that we have, so that when the BRT system gets implemented, it's not actually a route change. We're, for the most part, just replacing the BRT buses or replacing the regular buses with BRT buses, and the BRT buses will start stopping at the new stations. So we're actually implementing the service plan sooner than the actual infrastructure, if that makes sense. Is that it?
I think that's it. Do you want to roll down to the end of the presentation and we can just wrap up here real quick?
Yeah, give me a second. I can go.
Yeah, go to the future meeting. Keep going.
There we go.
Great. All right. So there will be lots of community engagement going forward. In particular, this summer, we will be out tabling at events throughout the community. So look for urban assets and a banner with BRT and the Metro Transit Network redesign will be out in the community sharing information and gathering everyone's input. In the fall, we plan on doing a workshop at the UW campus once we have the students back. And then starting in the winter is when we really get into the more detailed design. So 30% design, 60% design, and then all the way down to 90% design in the summer of 2022. We are hopeful that for the 30% design public meeting, we will be in person and we will have role plots that everyone can weigh in and write on and ask questions similar to the in the past. So please continue sending questions. Can you go one more down, Mike? Any questions, please absolutely send it to brt@cityofmadison.com. We'd be happy to answer. There's a whole slew of us who are on there available to answer questions. And we look forward to seeing you out there this summer. With that, I'll wrap it up. Mike?
Yep, thanks a lot. Thanks, Melissa, and thanks everybody else. Justin and Tom, I do not have a phone number there listed because I am pretty much virtual 100% at this point, but you can get a hold of me if you just email brt@cityofmadison.com, that'll get to me. I would like to thank everybody for coming, and please stay in touch and tune in to both BRT as well as Transit Network redesign. That's all I have. Tom, Justin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'd just say thank you to Mike and Melissa and Jesse and Mick as well on our team for putting this all together. And thank you for all of our attendees for joining us. It's always refreshing to have good participation in these meetings, and I really appreciate everyone being involved.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Good questions. I like the technical ones. Better with those.
Just maybe as a note that this is one of the more exciting things that Madison is doing. We've been trying to get rapid transit or high capacity transit in Madison since 1990. And we are moving in that direction. We are moving in line with our peers, our city peers, and this will be transformative. Thank you for being a part of it.
Thank you all. Have a good night.